Are you trying?
Good. Councilwoman, how are you?
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I'm just saying, I can't believe that this is the first time I've seen things. So
Take your time.
I saw somewhere after January 10th. I know. February 1st.
Seeing anyone anyway.
Jennifer's baby.
A lot of work. A lot of work.
You guys are ready?
You forget how much, attention the kids require.
But I mean, if it's a public comment, when don't want to say anything. I said, there's still a lot of public comment.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Wednesday, January 24th, and recall the meeting of the Recreation Advisory Board in order. Now, clerk, call the roll.
Chairman Simon.
Present.
Vice Chair Sanchez.
President.
Councilwoman Vargas.
Present.
Jenna Lafayette.
Present.
Kenneth Phillips is absent. There are 4 present and 1 absent. We have 1.
Great, thank you. So Happy New Year, everybody. Our first meeting of the new year. We attempted to meet a few weeks ago and had to postpone due to the natural disasters and flooding and whatnot. We had to, people were trying to take some kayaks and we made the executive decision to postpone it back. So thank you guys for your flexibility. And then we meet on Monday night. So this one's a little bit different, but this was the night that kind of worked for everybody so we could get a meeting back on. So thank you for your flexibility. We have a great agenda tonight. Madam Clerk, do we have to approve the minutes or anything from the last meeting?
No.
Okay. So we can dive right into it. We have a couple of things on the docket tonight. We're going to be hearing from John Azamanian. Did I get that right? I don't want to botch it completely. It's a good Armenian name, right? Who's our director of public property for the city. Sal Colorano's here as the chief operations for the Providence Public School Department. So thank you guys for coming. We also are going to have a discussion relative to fundraising and communicating with community-based organizations. Ken? Yeah, Ken. Have a seat. Nice. Let the record reflect that.
All right.
Right here.
Kenny Phillips, who is a member of the board, is present.
So noted.
Welcome, Kenny. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy New Year to you.
So we started diving right into it. Would you like to start the meetings on time? And so we'll start talking with 6 o'clock.
I apologize.
Yeah, no worries. We have some folks who are on some time frame, so we'll get started. And actually, no, before we get started, can you want to introduce yourself quick? I know this is the first meeting that you've been to since we started. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Kenny Phillips, been long-term Providence resident my whole life, actually. I live in Cranston now, but grew up in Providence, Chad Brown, south side of Providence. All the recreation center, baby whoops, growing up, played sports. So pretty much it.
Good.
Also bar, I'm sorry, one of bar in Providence, 148 bar lounge.
Sorry. So noted. Well, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming. And I've been keeping Ken updated periodically on the work and the priorities that we discussed as a group of the things that we've been talking about. So he's pretty well up to speed. And so looking forward to diving into Kenny. Second piece of the agenda item is we're going to have a discussion on fundraising and coordinating with community-based organizations. what's the mechanism to do that? We've had a lot of conversations around that. How do we bring money into the city? What's the mechanism to do that? How can we figure out conference needs? And then Director Grace is going to give us a brief update on the sports that we have going on right now, which is the youth basketball leagues, and also the planning that we're doing for the recreation department's soccer league, which we've been talking about. Excited to get that launched off. So excited to hear about all that. So not to waste any time, because we have a tight schedule and some members will have to leave early. Or if we get done on time, we'll take it from there. But Chief of Operations Sal Pellerano and Acting Director of Public Property John Arzamanian. Want to take a seat? And I will note for the record too that Director Grace is always a part of this conversation and this group, and I know that he'll be joining in from time to time on these presentations as well. Because one of the things that we've been talking about a lot as a group, first of all, guys, thank you for coming. We appreciate you taking the time out. There's a couple of things that we've been talking about as a group that I was hoping you guys can be a part of the conversation on. We want to continue this conversation, I think, with you guys as we progress. This board is a board that hasn't met in a really long time. We came together a couple of months ago when it was reapportioned and reappointed to start talking about a lot of the issues that happen in our rec department, and obviously a big piece of that is the facilities that the kids play in, the facilities that we make available to the children, senior citizens, and everybody who utilizes these spaces in the community. And as we know, I think our rec centers themselves are kind of broken up into a couple of different categories. There are rec centers that stand alone, they're their own building. There are rec centers that are attached to school buildings. And then there are a variety of different spaces out there that we use for different recreational activities that are city-owned properties. And we also know that, when we talk about our schools especially, there's a lot of spaces within our schools that really can be used for community activities and should be used a lot more. There's a lot of gym facilities that are in there, basketball courts, different weightlifting types of things, all the things that come, in a school that quite frankly can be used and should be used for our rec department, for the youth of our city, anybody else who really wants to use it. So we want to have a discussion with you guys tonight around that work. Also very exciting is that the mayor, I was at the signing of this last week, announced the CIP plan, which we know that some of that money from the ARPA dollars will be reinvested across a variety of our different city facilities, but especially there will be monies appropriated to our rec centers, which is very exciting. So we want to invite you guys here today. And John, maybe you can start and just give us a brief overview of the CIP program and what that's going to accomplish. I know that Director Grace also has some information on that, and Director, I know you have a pamphlet that we'll probably want to enter to the exhibit that we can hand out to the board members that probably breaks it down a little bit more. But Director, thank you very much for coming. If you give us a brief overview of the CIP, that would be great. And I think we could probably dive into some of the other topics that we want to talk to with both you and Sal as it relates to maintenance of our facilities, use of our facilities from the community. And then in particular, I think we want to talk about too, new construction of our school facilities, what that's going to look like. So for instance, Mount Pleasant High School is one of those facilities that talk about being a complete rebuild or significantly rebuilt. And what does that look like for our community spaces? How we can design those in a way where our rec department and the community has access to those spaces that can be utilized multi-purpose for the different things that we need and know that we need in the city here. So that's probably a lot all at once. But John, if you want to kind of lead it off on the CIP, I think in particular, that would be a great start, and then we can kind of go.
Absolutely, the new CIP, we have 125 projects that we're going to be doing through fiscal year 28.
I'm sorry, take one step back. Before we, the CIP stands for?
Capital Improvement Plan. Yes. Right, the new CIP, it's going to support about 125 different projects through fiscal year 28, roughly just under $337 million can be spent. Broken down from 125 projects. 9 of those are going to be for DPW, 21 are going to be for public properties, which includes the rec centers. 98 projects are going to be for parks and 5 for planning. Going into the rec centers themselves, the Johnson Center. We plan on doing a pretty full rebuild there. It's gonna be one of our programs. We're gonna move that into a resiliency center also. That's standalone. I'm sorry, that's not a standalone. That's mixed in with one of the schools. The Elwood Center, which is currently probably within 6 weeks of completion. The Elwood Center. And the Wolf Center, the Wolf Center, we have roughly about $9 million planned for that center. That's they're gonna be almost a full rebuild. Pool, indoor pool, including outside work. It's
Sorry, I missed that. Which one was this?
Davey
Davey
Lynn.
big close.
Yeah. That's exciting.
You mentioned as far as the maintenance for these buildings once we're done. We plan on spending a lot of money for these buildings, and we plan on maintaining them after we're done with that. We currently have, for the maintenance department, for my department, we have 6 people. We have another one coming on board. For the janitorial right now, we have 2 people, and we plan on having more people on board for janitorial also.
And that's specifically for recreation?
2 of them.
2 of them recreation. And how many are there now currently?
We have 2 in this building and 2 in public safety also.
Okay, so the 2 that are coming on board will be specifically for the rec, for the rest.
No, that's actually hired. They're actually hired. They're actually getting.
Oh, great.
Yeah, they've been going to direct centers. They're on a schedule. We created that, so, that was something that we thought about last year to make sure that the facilities are being maintained in terms of like cleanliness.
That's great. When did they start?
They started about a month ago.
Okay.
Yeah, about a month ago.
And how do they revolve around different buildings? Is it like a constant revolving schedule of
Yeah.
which they're going to?
Van, they regular equipment. We're planning on getting a new van right now, because the van they have right now is a little bit too big for what they're doing, and it's tough to drive and handle, so
Yeah,
we're getting another van for that.
that's really exciting. One of the things that we, heard and talked about here, and some of the public comments, and I think, councilmen and some of your, constituents and whatnot have talked about is the cleanliness and just the general upkeep of our rec centers. So I'm excited to hear about that. I'm sure my fellow board members share excitement in that, but that's good news.
We do have a major program right now called Recreational, we're really developing into that more and more. We pass it out to other departments, so it's gonna be a, computer, telephone, app, what kind of problem it is, we're gonna be able to respond to at that point.
What's the app called?
Rightly,
Right.
It's a software that was originally from Dude Solutions, and they have an event manager and an asset essentials portion of it that should talk to each other. Essentially, what it would give us the opportunity to do is if we have a maintenance flow of requests, it could tell us if a facility is offline while someone is looking to rent a facility as well. So that's the ultimate goal, so that the public will be able to go in and see the actual availability. And so what we're doing right now is working with public property, and this has been a long time, just to get the data and information into the database. We're currently working on the floor plans and spaces so that everything can be accurate, so that we can go live with something like that. So we've been taking small steps to get there, but it's actually really exciting to be able to do something like that.
Councilman Sanders, did you have a?
Yeah, I have a question, comment. Director Grace, is this, your first year here, there was no janitorial staff from public property that was available to you for rec centers?
No.
And from your understanding, it's always been that way?
I haven't seen anything specifically dedicated to the Department of Recreation or heard of anything specifically.
You know, so I definitely just want to highlight that, because I mean, just in terms of the maintenance, it seems like from having conversations, they always kind of got kicked down to the rec directors and their staff. So I think it's important that we're making these investments on the most basic maintenance of cleanliness of the rec facilities. So just thinking, I guess, forward a little bit in terms of budget, do you think those 2 is sufficient, or should we be looking to expand the staff members?
well, again, they're new, so we're looking into it. I mean, if it.
So like, how often are they
It's not-
hitting a rec center, I guess is a good question to start off of.
There's a schedule that puts them in a rec center, typically like 2 per day, depending on the actual recreation centers as well as the main office building. Because it's so new, we're still kind of collecting the data on that, and we're actually getting feedback from the directors. So when they were hired, they were introduced. We had a number of meetings and coordinated with public property and their maintenance team to understand like what that could look like. And so we're really just kind of waiting on the results of that. We've already made some tweaks. One of the major tweaks to it was supplies and how they manage that inside the facilities. They were bringing all the supplies and now they're going to meet at our main office and we supply them. They replenish supplies at the centers. And so we're still working that out. So I'd say, you know, in probably 6 months, we'd have a better understanding of what we need if it's working and that.
That's great. So director, maybe like 6 months, 7 months from now, we can have you back and give us an update on sort of progress and the data and what you think is working, really working, but Councilwoman, do you listen?
Yeah. How many days in the idiocy the people have to go there for the clean up or something like that?
Once a week.
Oh, once a week?
Yeah, it's once a week because it's 11 recreation centers. And so based on the time that they do, they're responsible for floors, bathrooms, general cleaning of surfaces and replenishing supplies. And so that would include in some recreation centers. So for example, like Igliosi, that's the entire building, right? And so surfaces, floors, etc. So they spend about a half a day there and then go to another center.
Wow,
The janitorial only once a week.
it's once a week.
Yeah, we have, there's 2 of them for 11 centers. And so they do a rotation. So it's 2 centers on a Monday through Friday schedule.
I would like the day can he go over there. The day, a specific day can he go over there, because it's once a week, so what day he go, a specific, I would like it, no.
Oh, you want to know what the day is? Okay.
Correct,
Yeah,
yes.
we can produce that schedule.
Because for me, it's not, you know, I know we don't have it before, but it's not, you know, we have the COVID, we have, you know, a lot of
Mhm.
flu, a lot of kids. The bathroom is, you know.
No, absolutely.
the-
And the general staff, so like the seasonal staff that we hire in recreation centers, they do have cleaning responsibility as well. This is more of like the deep clean to make sure that we get, you know, that deep clean done in addition to what's happening at the centers.
Okay.
So they're not gonna, so the people in the centers in between the week, they're not gonna not sweep the floor or not maintain the building. But this gives us our deep clean and the replenishing of supplies. And so we may actually change it based on like some of the feedback we get from the directors. For example, I can tell you, there's some directors that take pride in the program that they have for cleaning their buildings. So West End, for example, they don't do floors because that's part of like their program there to do the floor. So we already adjusted it and they're doing vents and other things that are necessary and/or windows specifically there. And so we were able to make that adjustment just right away based off the feedback from the directors.
Well, it's a step up that went from 0 to 2 at least. And I think that we we'll continue to monitor this as it goes along. We talk about facilities often and this comes up regularly. So I'm excited to hear that we're at least investing, you know, resources into our rec centers to clean them. And I think it's just something we'll have to keep an eye on, keep a tab on as we move along. But thank you for putting that into your budget previously, and as we approach this upcoming budget, if there's room for improvement, we can talk about it further, but that's at least a step up to start with. So we all know that our kids deserve to be in the cleanest facilities that we could possibly, you know, create for them. So I think we'll just have to continue to monitor this and see, you know, how it comes along, and if there's room for improvement, then we want to work with you guys to be able to do that, obviously. And I also just want to enter this pamphlet into the exhibit.
Exhibit 1,
Sorry,
exhibit 1,
exhibit 1. Yes.
can I? Motion.
There, motion is entered to the exhibit. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
So John, we interrupted you a little bit on your presentation, but if you want to continue on, is there?
If you have any questions, I mean.
I can also walk through what this is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great.
John, thank you for allowing me to speak. John's been great already. I think we've met like 17 times in his first like 2 weeks, so it's actually been pretty cool. One of the things I mentioned to the director. One of the things that I mentioned to the director when he got on board is sometimes not a lot of public knowledge of like what we're doing behind the scenes to work on some of these projects, improve the buildings, etc. So I wanted to, you know, at least have something available that people can take a look at, and look at the specific investment going into individual centers. So if you go through it, it just, it's very simple. It just has the amount that's being, invested, as well as, where that funding is coming from, and also an explanation of, what ARPA is and what CIP is and what our focus is. But you'll notice in meetings like this, unless you're directly involved, if you're not, seeking out the information, it's just an easy way to communicate that. I think that, in this next 2 years, we're probably gonna have, more investment in recreation centers than we have in a long time. What's not reflected on here, because I didn't wanna, put out information that we haven't secured yet, but, we're applying to, at least $16 to $20 million in grants as well, to invest into the rec center. So, if we are awarded these grants, there's gonna be significant improvements to, other centers as well. So some of the ones that you see here that, aren't listed with a dollar amount, are either being, assessed through, grant money or, the revolving fund, in partnership with Providence Public Schools, which is a great partnership, that we've continued to work on to understand how we share facilities, which is, basically on the agenda, right?
Yeah.
And so we're trying to make smart decisions and collaborate early to make maintenance, repair, purchasing decisions that make sense collaboratively, as opposed to having 4 different, architects in a 2-block radius working on the same projects and, the maintenance, et cetera. So, this has been, something that I'm really happy about, at least the communication, happening.
And the timeline on all these repairs, director, is, when do they start, when are they anticipated to be?
So some of them are already in progress. So for example, some of the stuff that David Lopes has already happened, for example, like they got, the asbestos abatement and their floors done. The councilwoman was, very instrumental in helping out, at Igliozzi with the bleachers, and there'll be some more, things coming down the line. So there's a schedule. That'll be a public property, thing to kind of give you the specific schedule. And maybe that's something that we can improve upon and speed, but that's hard to predict too, just based on, when contracts go to bid, et cetera. So it's very hard to estimate that. But this is allocated. And then that's the good thing. So we know that the investment is gonna be there. And with working with the council, and we've already seen some of the improvements, like I said. And so we know that it's real, we know that's gonna happen, and we have a pretty good plan in place. And this is a collaboration with the directors at the site, the council member that is in the ward, myself, public property, sometimes sustainability, depending on if we're looking at green energy initiatives, et cetera. So really good place to be in right now for recreation.
So John, if there's any timeline put together on this, that would be great information to, share.
Okay, I can get that, please.
And so the dollar amounts that are on here, you mentioned private grants, and I'm not sure if there's more federal money that we can use on this. Will these dollar amounts leverage other grant opportunities? Like, are there grants that are out there where there's a certain city investment that private entity will match, or?
Yeah, so we're actually exploring that right now. And so we've been in a significant grant process over the past couple of months, and we're gonna continue to do that. In our department, we actually are researching the grants that we are going to be able to apply to. So I probably have a list of about 10 to 12 that we're looking at, to see if we can realistically, apply to them and get the funding. I just don't believe that it's, CIP or ARPA is gonna be enough. And so supplementing like what we can do, for programming, for facilities, for equipment, right, is gonna be needed, specifically when we bring on more centers and more opportunity.
And when the CIP money, that's all ARPA money, is that correct? All, it's not all,
No,
it's not ARPA money?
no.
Okay.
Good chunk of it.
A chunk of it is. And what's, it's all bonded money, okay, yeah, so, is there talk about putting, in this election cycle, another bond, together to keep on increasing this pot of money for the CIP, or?
So the bond we're doing this year is gonna be a school bond, and that's gonna put us pretty close at
Capacity.
capacity. So I don't think we would do another properties bond after that.
Which is kind of cool, because that would be like the revolving fund that would go into as
Yeah.
well. And so that's where you see on there where it says that, that's where we're trying not to you know, if we can get reimbursement, we want to go that route as opposed to.
Right.
So that's why we're collaborating and making sure we make better decisions with our, you know, buildings that are in close vicinity or connected.
Yeah, or even with current capital improvement plans that are happening in the district, excuse me for my voice, a little under the weather, so if you get my voice in and out because of that. But including for the capital projects that are in progress, so we have, you know, done a lot of collaboration with public property and Director Grace to rethink about how do we define the usage of that space, both in the school day and out of school, so that we can leverage and maximize the reimbursement that's available for those projects. So we know gyms are used, you know, during school hours for school purposes, but maybe also open to the community. So as part, they're connected to the school facility, and we're already in there doing significant capital projects and renovations. Why not, you know, tap into those funds and be able to include spaces like the gyms and the rec center. So examples of that is, you know, Pleasant View is currently under construction. There's a great floor that exists there, but there's other improvements that are needed in the rec center part of the building. So Director Grace with public property and my school team have been working with the council person to define what that scope of work is and how do we include it and incorporate it into the current capital planning that's happening, so that those dollars can be maximized and be part of the reimbursement.
Yeah, so the state so everybody's aware, if you're not aware, is on the school construction, the state reimburses at 91 cents on the dollar. When we do school construction, so that's an important piece of it. And does that cover, like Pleasant View, I think is a good example of that, right?
Yeah.
Because there's school construction going on right now.
Yes.
Do they?
So wherever there's multiple use of those facilities and whether they're adjacent, because there's 3 different buckets when you look at recreational centers and schools. There's one that are like one and the same. So an example of that is RFK, right?
Yeah.
It's not separate. It's like one in the same space, right? The gym is used during the day. Serves the purpose of the cafeteria, but also becomes the rec center, and is completely included in the school. Then you may have Young Woods that is, you know, adjacent to the facility, but there's a clear line division of separation between school and the rec center, and there's dedicated spaces that are solely used for rec center purposes versus school activities. And then there's one like, you know, where they're adjacent in the same property, but there's still 2 standalone. So like Kazarian, right? Kazarian is one where it's in the same property, but it's not connected to the school per se. But another opportunity there is that if the school is, you know, planning to utilize that as instructional space during school hours, we are then able to, you know, use some of those funds to reinvest in that space and bring it up to par if we're already addressing the school buildings.
Yeah. And Pleasant View is, where does that fall?
Pleasant View is adjacent, so there's separation, but they are one in the same building.
And the school utilizes, utilize it during the day.
And so, and does the pool fall into that category? The pool at Pleasant View, does it fall into that category too?
It falls into that category, yes, because it's used for, you know, it's used for Pleasant View. It's also used as the only pool that I believe is indoor for classical swimming team.
Oh, okay.
Like the rec center, you know what I mean? So wherever there's those opportunities and we're making those significant investments, we want to maximize that and make sure that, you know, we're also taking care of those facilities as well.
And so now that we're on school salary, we can just dive right into it, but the maintenance for all the centers you just described that either attached to schools or adjacent to schools. Can you walk us through the process of how the maintenance of those facilities work?
I'll start that we have been, and by we, I mean Director Grace, public property, Dobbs Construction, these are my city's OPM, PTSD facilities team have been meeting in the last, I don't know, several months now to put, you know, a more clear MOU in place where all of those things are defined and clearly articulated, because in the past, there has been past practices where they have not necessarily been in black and white or captured in a way that people can understand it. So that's the work that we've been doing and trying to, partner with one another so that we can make that clear. But there is a building use process form that we use at the district. To make those spaces available to the community, because we know that while the main purposes of those buildings are for school, right, during the day, when our students are our first customer, and we want to make sure that those spaces are adequately prepared for them on a daily basis. These also serve as an asset to the community at large. And they're sometimes one and the same, right? The same kids who go in the after school program, maybe the same kids that attend school. So we understand that. And so what we have in place, there is a process for reserving or renting out those facilities. I will say that one thing that we're also looking at is when those facilities are rented, what is the cost, right? Not only to make the space available, but the cost is associated to maintain that rental. So there's custodial that happens after hours. There's a rental facility fee that's been set for years that hasn't been reviewed. Are we undercharging? Are we overcharging? I don't think we're really overcharging, but if anything, we're.
So can I just interrupt you for a second and ask a question about that? I can understand that for outside entities who are looking at the.
That's mainly for outside entities.
But if if our recreation department wants to host their youth basketball games, for example, at Mount Pleasant High School on Saturday mornings or whatever the city, for the city, internal city function, is there a fee?
There might not be a rental facility fee per se, because it's part of the community, right? Like there might be some costs associated that we then need to look, and that may be some custodial. People need to bring somebody on board on a schedule, or there might need to be some detail, depending on the event and how large it is, there might be some detailed police that is needed to make sure that everything's safe. So those costs, usually, I don't believe, and correct me if I say this wrong, I don't believe that there's ever been charged, but those are charges that, that incur with after hours or during off schedules that are associated. Like an example is, I know the recreation department uses PCTA for the summers, right? But those programs, while the school is off, those programs happen during the day. So there's no cost to the city. I mean, this is one and the same.
Yeah,
So.
well, that's the point that we want to really make too. We, talked about this a little bit internally. You weren't here some of these conversations, but we feel strongly that a city facility is a city facility. Schools obviously are, it's the PPSD is, I don't want to say quite an independent body because we're all part of the city here, but at the same time, these are city assets that we're talking about, and
Well, yeah, no,
are utilizing to maximum capacity for community benefit as needed.
Yeah, and I don't wanna undermine that. I 100% agree. I think we also have to understand collectively, which is, I think, what we have been doing, by creating this MOU in this process, that ultimately, especially those facilities that are connected and one and the same, the main purpose is school, right? So we need to make sure that those facilities are adequate and clean and ready for kids every day. And like any other city department, the school department itself doesn't have an endless operation of budget to sustain the maintenance and the wear and tear for the additional usage that may not be, that may be outside of school. And so that's where
one question about that, when the high schools have basketball games, for example, at night or after hours or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that work included in the maintenance contract?
Yes.
Already? So there's
It is.
how is that worded in that contract?
It is included as part of their, work evening crew.
Okay.
That they have to, clean it up and leave it ready for the next day. There is a small budget, for, again, police detail, right? Like when you think about high school, mainly for the high school, because we know that it brings, outside crew from all over the state. So like anytime there's those large competition games, there is a budget in place to support those needs. And, there's no additional cost to the city. I mean, but as a whole, we have that covered. I'm more talking about weekends and evenings or off cycle, that are not necessarily part of the day-to-day operations. with the new contract and the maintenance, we've done, it's a performance-based contract, so now it's not so much about, the number of times, the frequency, the tasks, is not necessarily what it was, it's more of a just like, the expectation is that these things are clean, and how you do that is up to you, but we need to set those standards, right? So,
And so currently, before the MOU was in place, so I'll take like Kennedy is kind of a good example of this, right? Where it's directly attached to a school, it's utilized by both. The maintenance for Kennedy is the responsibility of
of the school department.
the
Yeah.
school department.
Yes, and that's a good example, because again,
Yeah.
that's one and the same, right? Like, they're two different, like I said, three different buckets, but there's no clear division between
Right.
the gym, the cafeteria, the rest of the school. It's all one full building for the school and the recreation center. So after, I don't know, 4 o'clock it turns over to be more of a recreational center. But still, the crew that's there and responsible for maintaining and addressing any facilities needs is the school personnel that's, assigned on the regular. So there's no difference there.
And then on those that are adjacent to, where does the responsibility fall there?
So again, that's where I think we've done the work to sort of clarify that, right? So like,
But previously, before, I know you guys are going, I'm really glad you guys have this conversation, I think it's very
Yeah.
important, obviously.
I mean,
Yeah, so I can answer that. So what we've done is we've defined essentially like 4 different types of campuses. A standalone recreation center, one that's connected to a PPSD location, and in that location, it can be managed by recreation, PPSD, public property, and sometimes parks, right? And so we defined all the locations to see who would be performing maintenance and what those duties are. Then we went into everything that could potentially be done, from snow removal to sweeping floors. So we went through everything. And so Kennedy being a great example is that just by doing that already, we adjusted the cleaning schedule for 8 PM to happen the morning after instead of them trying to do it at 10 at night, since we were in there. Just those little adjustments probably save a lot of time, effort, and money. But as we go through each of these campuses, we're looking at safety, security, access points, getting on the same camera systems. So right now, for example, there are buildings that have like 3 different camera systems for no reason, other than we just didn't have a conversation.
Yeah.
Right, and so like, that's why this is important that we're doing this. What that's gonna lead to, and kind of your purpose of like the usage of space. Well, imagine a building where it's, being used constantly, right, from like 8 AM to 9 PM. And we're not on the same system, so we don't even communicate with each other to see if there's gonna be a late event where it could dip into recreation time or vice versa. So what we're doing is using this as a mechanism to potentially get on the same page with that. One usage form that the workflow goes to the appropriate facility based on the selection that you make. That's the vision, and that's why we're having discussions now. So ultimately, that helps with everyone in terms of accessible space. You'll know what's available, where it's available, and by you making your selections, we'll know where the maintenance requirements come from and what the fees will be associated, depending on who's gonna be in charge of that.
Yeah,
Councilman Sanchez has a question.
What's the timeline for the MOU?
So we are potentially submitting in spring of 2024. So we are still defining and still working, still doing building walkthroughs. So I don't have a definitive timeline, and I guess I gotta mention this, there was no one that like forced us to do this. If that makes sense, like this was like voluntary. And we just kind of recognized it, and so there's no one telling us to
it's
do
an
it.
opportunity.
Yeah, and that's really it, like, we were like, this needs to be solved, and the only way we can solve it is if we meet and get together. So it's gonna be something that we present when it's like finished, I guess.
Will the MOU require any contract amendments
Yes.
regarding the maintenance contract that we have? So all that stuff's gonna have to go.
Yes.
Yeah, because there might be some
Process.
square footage that needs to be, included that was not previously included, vice versa.
And will that be a school board approval process or a council approval process, or who?
I think it depends on the scale of it, right, the size of the change, whether that's, within a certain threshold where you do need for school board approval. So those are the pieces that we're trying to figure out and get very specific.
Mr. Phil?
That's a good question. So prior to the Brightly being implemented, is there something like a tracking mechanism for work orders and things that need immediate attention, bathroom facilities, leaks, pest control? Is there something currently
Yeah.
that says, completed pecking order?
All right, so, a lot of it has been paper process.
Yeah.
And
Emails.
just to be, and emails, and so, that's why this is really needed. You know, so for recreation, is I guess the rec advisory board, so when you come into the department, you notice that there's a lot of paper processes. Obviously mistakes can get made, and so if you were to ask me, do I think that the recreation usage facility process is a great one right now? Absolutely not, right? There's room for improvement, and that's what we're trying to do. So before we get to like the Brightly, you kind of have to get staff, constituents and city folks to start practicing using a different process, an electronic process. So what we've done is we built an intranet site for recreation where a lot of the forms that will use that software are currently electronic to understand like what that workflow process would be like. And so I've showed it to PBSD, for example, because I know like their usage form, building usage form is a paper process as well. And so I've already built something, so I'm gonna share it with them so we can see what that looks like to input that. And then when you get a response and an approval process, which will eventually turn into, hopefully using the Brightly software to do all of that. So we're
As
just.
Director, Azamanian, that's the Brightly, that's citywide, right? You guys even use.
It's not, could be citywide, but right now it's not. The Parks and Fountains, they've been using it the most right now, and they really have it down pat. We just started implementing, we just want to add DPW onto it. So little by little, we're adding right.
Okay, and we want to get on board with that as well. Yeah, I think it's gonna, again, simplify that process, and so we're looking at although it's through the city and, purchase, how to speak as the happens a license where they're able to just have an encompass or a holistic view of any rental or needs or usage. It tracks how much usage is happening per location, per room, per space, and that way calculates like what is the operation cost that is needed to maintain that space, right? Like that's what that software.
And even
It helps you with budgeting. It really helps you get to the nickel and dime of that.
Councilman Sanchez and then,
Yeah, just quick reminder, I think just make sure that one person's talking at a time, so we're all kind of on the same page. But my first, thing I would say, is definitely, that's awesome that you guys are using Brightly. I've heard nothing but positive things from Parks, and I think everyone in the city should be using that software. My second question is to you, Sal. Thank you for being here. I greatly appreciate it. When was the last time that PPSD rented out a gym space, maybe outside of PCTA, to a sports related activity in the community?
I don't have that data in front of me, but I know that there are, through their real round aspectly, there dates and seasons based on the sports that they may be playing, where those facilities are rented out.
I asked that because I've personally had two experiences the past 6 months where I try to use a gym space and it's been denied for different reasonings. So the most recent one was a youth soccer team looking to practice. And in my opinion, I think it's just completely unacceptable using wear and tear as a reasoning to deny a community-based youth sports team academy. I think we need to figure out, and it seems like that's what you guys are doing, figuring out what can we do to not be able to deny, and I think figuring out those maintenance costs. But I would just stress the urgency to try to get that, because as a counselor, being a part of a city leadership that's denying a community-based sports group, and then 5 months coming to those communities and asking them to approve a $400 million bond for said school, it just doesn't add up, and our community isn't just gonna take that going forward. So we could find solutions to some of those denials going forward. I mean, I would greatly appreciate it. I mean, I was trying to use a gym space as a backup plan for a community block party back in September, and this was one of the denials. And it's super frustrating that we're almost in February now, and we're in the exact same spot. At least from the outside, it's great to hear internally that you guys are moving the needle on those conversations. But I just want to state that from the public, I mean, as counselors, this is where we're at. And I just want to make sure that the frustration, as honest as possible, is very live in the community.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, and I hear the feedback, and if I can just respond.
No,
a little
absolutely.
bit. I think depending on the type of activity that you're having, the space that is being utilized, there could be reasons why it could be denied or not recommended for that intended purposes. Like, I think what you're referring in terms of the soccer, one of the, for gym at West, if I'm not mistaken, you know, that it's not only the wear and tear, but it's like the health and safety of the occupants that are gonna be there, right? There's pipes in those gyms that could be burst, and it could be hit if they're hit the wrong way. That happened yesterday at one of our schools. We had to evacuate, you know, a whole school during the middle of the day because one of the kids was playing soccer in the gym and hit a pipe and it burst in, and, you know, it just created so depending on the activity that you're doing, that could be the reason why it may not be recommended. It doesn't mean that we can't find alternative options for those scenarios that you're describing. I think the other thing that we named about, you know, for all the new construction.
Yeah.
Is we're bringing, part of the planning that we have been doing is bringing additional spaces that can be utilized and can become more active for community purposes outside of school. So like adding community rooms to our schools and our new construction so that you have council meetings, you have neighborhood meetings, so that those are not, you know, are completely accessible without necessarily having to tap into the rest of the schools, right? And so those are some of the design, intentional design decisions that are being made so that those spaces become more open and more accessible. For the new school, Vespasian, that is a large square that's strategically placed in an area that you can utilize that without any safety concerns. But some of our old buildings were just not designed to have certain things in them. And depending again on the activity, that could be impacting the pool or them. And so I'm happy to like walk through the space with you and find an alternative solution. It may not be that particular site, but it could be.
Yeah, so just quickly, and then we can move on after this denial, they're willing to play in any gym in the city. So I mean, that's kind of where I want to get to, is like, okay, if Georgia West isn't available, cassette pipes might be an issue. What other gyms can we offer this group in the city?
Yeah, and again, yes, we could do that, and depending on the organization, and the purpose and the intent, we may be able to, you know, waive the rental facility.
Yeah.
But there needs to be some costs associated to maintain that, because again, that's not part of the scope that where it may be happening. If it's happening on a Sunday, we have to bring in additional staff that's off to cover those costs. So in some cases, we work with the organizations that are looking for those spaces and say, look, we're not going to charge you, we're not looking to make any money, we're not going to charge you a rental fee. But here's the cost that's going to have to the district that needs to be absorbed by said organizations so that at least it's a wash and it doesn't become, you know, an expense or a burden in the district, because ultimately we have 37 facilities, and if all of them were doing that, that's money that we're taking away from our own, right? And so depending on what those are and what the events might be, there is opportunities there where we work with the partners in the community and the organization and say, we're not looking to make any money out of the rental. We're just trying to absorb the cost, and that's going to be as an expense to the district, so that those costs can be, you know, paid by whatever organization. So in cases, it may apply.
Yeah, and Sal, the one thing I'll say is that a priority of this board that we've talked about, one of the 3 priority areas, is expansion of opportunity. And I think as we continue to get the message out in the community about these opportunities, we get more kids involved and enrolled and more people coming in, you know, space is going to become more of an issue. We see it with our basketball leagues. They're filled, the courts are filled for certain times during the day. And so I'm glad that you guys are working on that MOUs. I think that's going to be really important. as we move forward and expanding these opportunities, because I think it's only gonna increase our enrollment in, youth sports and our senior citizens and folks that are working with to utilize this space. So there's a really important piece of it. I'm gonna acknowledge Councilwoman Peterson, who is here. Councilwoman, thank you for joining us. I will give you a minute to.
I do, I have a quick question in terms, thank you, Chair, I appreciate that. I very much appreciate all of the streamlining that's happening in order to get here. My concern and my question is more in terms of present moment, immediate facility needs. So I can give you a perfect example. You guys talked about Kennedy quite a bit. I put in a request, actually, I had a meeting where I made mention of an issue with the basketball, with two of the basketball hoops that were coming out of the wall. The director over at Kennedy and we have a wonderful relationship where we're very much in contact about multiple things that might be happening, because it's important to me to make sure that the only rec that I have in my community is very well maintained and cared for. I have my community meetings there. It's all hands on deck when it comes to the Kennedy rec committee. So I made mention of this in June. And I followed up again in November, and nothing was done to help remedy this situation. I followed up again today, and because I knew that I was coming to this particular meeting, and still nothing. My concern is that we have had community members, the community, and it's not just my work, it's everywhere. Where people have made mention of certain things in other recs that might be happening that have not been addressed in a timely manner. And so one of the things that I'd like to know is what's the timeline to address some of these things? Specifically speaking to mine, that's the major issue. I know that in different recreation centers, there has been made mention of other things that could be facilitated fairly quickly, not necessarily the thoroughness of what might be projected in some of this, which I think this is phenomenal as well, by the way. But things that need to be addressed quickly, because we have our children, we have our kids coming into these buildings. So, for example, I can't remember which rec it was, but there was one of them, somebody had talked about the bathroom having 3 stalls and only one of them being able to be used. Another one had said that there was a hole in the floor where kids had to make sure that they were not playing in that particular area, just to make sure that they didn't get hurt. These are very much concerns, not just as counselors, but also as community members, because we are sending our children there. And so I kind of want to understand what the timeline to address these immediate concerns are, while we're still working to streamline all the rest of it.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
If I can add, and then I can start and add.
It was like recreation centers.
Recreation centers,
Okay,
all
so
my
that-
thing is located with PTSD, so I.
Yeah, I like to, I just wrote it
Okay.
to myself, but if I can address
Yeah,
it,
absolutely.
I don't know who you followed up with, so thank you for bringing that to my attention. I'll make sure that I personally follow up on the basketball hoops. I was not made aware of that. But just to give you again, depending on the repair, we have to be honest here, it's not new to people that these facilities have been deteriorating over the years, because there's been deficiencies in neglected that have not been addressed. So that is not to the fault of anybody that's sitting in this room.
Of course.
It's just what it is. That's our plan. And so there's over $900 million of needs just to make our current schools warm, safe, and dry. And that's like, improvements that oftentimes the kids are not able to identify, the staff is not able to see, right? Like, that's just, again, to keep our schools warm, safe, and dry. What I think we have been able to do is really think about what other avenues that are available that can tap, and in some cases accelerate the timeline that you're asking for. So we've done incredible work with public property on like this capital revolving fund. There's a lot of projects, small projects that are meaningful. You can visually see improvements, and can correct safety issues that have been probably lingering for time through the capital revolving fund. Again, that allows you to invest that money, make those repairs, get reimbursed for it, and you just go year over year and you keep chipping out that list, endless list away. And I say endless, it is really endless. There's like not enough to cover,
Right,
but it's a way to address them.
sure.
And of course, if it's like a life safety that must happen today, like, doesn't matter, we have to do it. Right, and so those are some of the strategies that we've been utilizing. So I can follow up with the
Sure, thank you.
school myself and look at the basketball hoop and make sure that, if it's not already in the capital revolving fund, what can we do now to make it better and then make a permanent fix to it?
Cool. Do you wanna-
Yeah, and so on our end, there is no way I would ever say that we have a perfect process or a great process for handling maintenance. A lot of that, to be perfectly honest with you, was the process of being reported.
Mhm.
Like, do we know that something's going on? Does it get reported? How does it get reported? And when it gets reported, what is the response time? So I can tell you this just personally, from when I got here last January to now, the response time has been night and day better than it was even 3 months ago. So in terms of the response time, the things that have improved, if I know about the issue, I actually know that somebody's gonna respond. That wasn't the case like 7 months ago. 2, I get a notification of what the work order is, and then I can actually follow up on it, and then I get more communication with the folks that are going out to actually perform the service, and then I get a notification when the service is done. So a lot of this has been, depending on what the issue is, far quicker than it was a while ago. So if something does get reported to me, and if something, goes by the wayside and we don't know, now I have the ability to go in and check, when did this happen, who responded, and what can we do about it now? And so for me, in terms of answering the question, response time, much better than it was 6 months ago, and still room for improvement, because this process isn't even perfect yet.
Right.
But I've seen the response time with hiring of new folks in public property to be able to facilitate that.
I appreciate, and I just wanna say that, again, that streamlining all of this, because I know that for many years it hadn't been. I think it's a phenomenal thing, and it's just going to be something that is beneficial to everybody. But in the interim, while we're still working on that, there are the health and safety of our kids, the prime, the most important thing that we need to acknowledge and be prepared for. And in these particular buildings where many of our kids spend so much time, it's absolutely essential that this is priority number one, to make them, like you said, warm, safe and dry, but also make sure that the small things that could end up being potentially big things, because God forbid something should happen, are addressed in a timely fashion. That's all. That's my main goal out of understanding everything that's happening with these facilities, is to really understand how the health and well-being of our kids is going to end up once we continue to work on these facilities. So it's a prime, it's a number one thing for me to prioritize. So
Thank you, Council, appreciate that. We're gonna hear from Councilman Sanchez one last time, and then we're gonna move on to the next item. I do, after Councilman Sanchez, one of the other reasons I wanted to really come in out too is to talk about new school construction. And briefly talk about what that looks like and how you're accommodating for community input and community need. I think, again, I talked about Mount Pleasant because it's the one I'm mostly involved with. But Councilman Sanchez, why don't you start off, and then we'll get into that, and then we're gonna move on to the next agenda item.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, no, I really appreciate everyone here, because I mean, that's usually one of my biggest frustrations with government, local government, is just not being honest with each other, with ourselves, and we're all pretty honest about the condition of the facilities, just imagine, we're barely now getting janitorial staff for the rec centers. I mean, just that alone really shows how neglected some of these buildings have been. And I also do understand that the finances of all of this is super important as a finance member. I'm becoming a little more fiscally conservative as a council person myself. But something that hasn't really been said in this room, and I would just be doing a disservice to my community if it's not mentioned, is that the more kids that we have in these facilities, youth, young adults, the more expansion. I mean, that's why I'm super proud to be on this board, is literally the more lives that we're saving in our community, the more lives that we're changing. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for youth sports and coaches growing up. So that's what I really want to be at the forefront of everyone's head in these conversations, is that obviously the dollar amounts matter, the MOUs matter, but it's literally lives that we're saving from our communities, helping them grow and do whatever they want to do in this planet. So I just want to stress that first and foremost, or lastly, before we move on. But like I said earlier, thank you guys for coming to the table, and I'm hoping to continue these follow-ups.
Yeah, well said, Councilman. Thank you for that. I'll double down on that and say that that's the reason why we're all here, obviously. And so, I think this is one of those issues that we'll want to keep the conversation going on throughout the year. Maybe have you guys back a little bit later on, like close to the summer or something like that, and continue to talk about this and see the progress on it. But I did want to invite Sal here too, because there is a lot of new construction going on. We briefly touched on this, but how, Sal, is in the process of the new construction and remodeling a lot of these schools that are making them like new? What's the community engagement process in that, and what is the process around the design to make sure that these can truly be used as a community benefit as they get built out?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'll take that as a PSA announcement to share. There is a session tomorrow from 5 to 6 virtually. If you go onto our website in our district calendar, that's public, and you'll be able to see that, and that's specifically for phase 4. And that will inform and be a good example of how we involve the community and gather that input as we continue these improvements. Phase 1, 2, and 3 are projects that either have been completed, some are currently in design or about to start, like Mount Pleasant is phase 3 of that capital improvement plan. And that is one that, we go to the ward meetings, we go out to the neighborhood and share like, hey, this is what we know, these are the options, these are the options on the table, like here the feedback and the community, and that information gets used to then inform some of the decision making as to what is ultimately done in that property, right? So that I know that for Mount Pleasant specifically, the RFP for a build design is slated to go out January 29th. Through the board of contractors for a soliciting firm that can take that initial estimate and initial analysis that was done, continue that process to get to an ultimate design. And that is all the bids are due, I think, February 25th or so. So around early March or so, we should have a design firm that's in place, that they again will reach back out to the community and say, here are the initial ideas or options that were put on the table. This is the analysis that was done. Here's a more concrete plan and how and engaging the community, whether that's through a virtual session, through a ward meeting, through staff sessions, parent sessions that we hold at the school, to be able to just hear that and incorporate that into the design. So that is a way in which we do that. And like I said, we are doubling down on, particularly on all of the new construction projects, we're doubling down to make sure that, there is, again, community dedicated spaces that are available and accessible at all times, right? So we may not have had schools that had a specific community room, but now, you walk into the new Spaziano, use as an example. There's an open media center library that's right in the front center. You can literally lock down, access control some of the doors that let you into the rest of the school in fashion, but that front entrance is open and available to have a community-wide event, right? That is bringing in community members into that space. And those are intentional designs that were put in place to make those buildings more accessible. And that's what we've been doing.
Good. Yeah, I mean, the access piece is something that we've talked about. I think PCTA provides a good example of that. And so on the weekends, we know it's highly utilized.
Yeah, the field house.
To access it from the street when there's events, and to open up the entire school for people to walk through. But again, as we sort of work towards some of the goals that we're talking about as a group, again, I would just say it again, expansion of opportunity is one of those things. And it's gonna come to a point where we're gonna need, I think, probably a lot more space to execute on, hopefully all the stuff that we're trying to pursue, and that director Grace is kind of showing a lot of vision put in place, so.
Yeah, I think if we can achieve the vision of having a unified system. That, has and creates that visibility, we can do that and really maximize these spaces because we'll know. What's available, what's being used, what is actually more, popular per se, if that's the word that you want to use, but like being, having the ability to see what's available. By utilizing a software that we mutually can have visibility into it.
Are there any other questions from any of the members? For Mr. Pellerano or Mr. Arzumi?
Yeah, I know, Stephen, at a last meeting, some of the directors of some of the facilities had said that they only have one space, like they only have a gym. So when the basketball program comes in, the rest of the facility has to shut down. Have we addressed that this year with the basketball league to move into some of the school gyms or something to accommodate, the rest of the kids who are at these facilities?
No, we haven't addressed that this year. This is actually my first time seeing the basketball league from the director perspective. I didn't make many changes, I'll be honest with you, because I wanted to see what was possible. So in terms of facility usage and moving games, that's something that I didn't want to do this year. But that's why this discussion is happening now for future years and what that could look like. And in order for that to happen, I think that we have to have a pretty good process in place to make sure that we can do that. So answer the question, no, but I think that's something that we want to look into in the future. And this will definitely give us the pathway to get that done. It's not just Providence Public Schools either. While we're having this discussion, I actually meet with a lot of organizations that have gyms and facilities and understand what their usage is and how we can collaborate on things that like sharing spaces, etc. So it's not just with PPSD, but with a lot of community based organizations that have these facilities to see if that's something that we can actually get done.
Sure, so the hope will be for next season to be able to accomplish that.
Well, Mr. Pellerano and Mr. Arzumi, I want to thank you guys for coming in. I particularly want to thank all three of you for the coordination that you have. Councilman Sanchez said it earlier. Having been in city government, I see how siloed things can be. So to see people working, across the different, different silos and different departments and trying to come up with solutions for this stuff is really encouraging. And I'd love to see the progress here. Obviously, as Councilman Peterson noted, there are obviously some immediate needs that will continue to rise to the surface with this board and that we're going to want to see, taken care of, particularly as it relates to safety. That's obviously a big one. But we appreciate the conversation and we appreciate continuing the conversation in the future. This is one of those items that we're going to want to keep on talking about. And it seems like we're making improvements as we move forward, and hopefully we'll continue to hear even more improvements next time you guys come. And we'll be in touch about other things that we're hearing as well. As one of our responsibilities by the city charter is to really hear community feedback around this stuff. And so we want to keep an open mind about what we're hearing and how we can execute maybe a little bit better on some of these needs moving forward. But thank you so much for the work that you do. Thank you for coming before us. We appreciate it. And we'll let you go.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to the board. Yeah,
We would like the public would like to question some of the.
Excuse me, that's the public comment is for after.
No, it's
not for right now.
not for the agenda, remember?
How did everyone turn this? Question.
Yeah, it's public comment for the end. It's not questioning. It's not a line of questioning or answering. It's a public comment at the end of the. Thank you, guys. So next on the agenda, we've been talking a lot about fundraising, right? We realize that there's a lot of opportunity out there that exists. Local business owners that want to support, sponsor basketball team, sponsor, youth rec leagues, sponsorships for soccer league, the things that we're working on there. And so we've had a lot of conversation about that as one of our areas of focus. It's our third area of focus is fundraising the budget and really increasing, the money that we can bring in to expand opportunities, to take care of our facilities, all the things that we can do. And so I know Director Grace has been working with the finance department around the mechanisms around that, and how people can donate, and how we as board members can go out and I think solicit, funds to help with this too. And so Director Grace, I think, prepared a presentation for us on this, and we'll enter that into exhibit as exhibit 2. Is there a motion to enter into
So moved.
exhibit 2? Second. All in favor? I said, all opposed? I said, okay.
So there's no public comment?
There is public comment at the end, sir. It's at the end of the meeting. Yeah.
All right, I got some comments for this one.
Yeah, definitely.
I just want to notate real quick, Director, before you start. I unfortunately have a hard stop at 7:15. Apologies to community members. I will definitely go back and watch public comments online. I have something at 7:30 that I cannot.
Do you want me to like just kind of give like a quick?
No, I'm saying take your time.
Oh, yeah.
If I get up and leave in middle. of it.
Yeah, I was.
No hate.
Yeah, no worries. I appreciate it. So.
You got the floor.
Okay, so I think many of you know, in last year's budget, I think we realized that we would need to coordinate with community-based organizations more. I intentionally created a position to do that, right? So a community-based organizations coordinator. And so what that would do for the Department of Recreation is primarily 3 things. Focus on the relationship with organizations, both internal to the city as well as external, to see how we can collaborate and increase programming and opportunity to go after and apply for alternative funding as well. And so that's what we're talking about today. So working on that, we have done a few things. So we had to look at this at a couple different levels. The city level, and what we're doing with other departments, the recreation main office, and then what's happening in recreation centers. So one of the challenges that I pose to the directors is, what is your engagement with the community? And what is the mechanism you're using to get community sponsorship into your recreation centers? So a few months ago, we created a form to track that, which is the community sponsorship form, and it basically guides them on how to go out and speak to community-based organizations or community members to start soliciting, not just funding, but like anything. You can ask for volunteer help, you can ask for, sponsorship, you can ask for program coordination, and we just wanted to get an idea of what the possibility was, right? And who's gonna go out and how that process looks. As we look to expand our programming and or leagues, which is on here, and expanding to, like the soccer league, for example, the fundraising element of it is gonna be really important. What you're looking at here is something that we haven't done in the past, specifically or in a way that was intentional, which is create sponsorship levels to work with the Department of Recreation to help facilitate programming for kids, adults, seniors, right? And so this is the first of its kind that's going to go live. So this is no one else is seeing this actually, so you guys are the first people to actually see this, what we're actually going to be looking for. This will actually be an online form that we can send out, available on our website as well, which would give companies, community-based organizations an idea of what it would cost to work with us on a sponsorship level. I think this is going to be important as we grow leagues, and even in our current leagues, there are costs associated with operating all of these leagues, but it kind of pigeonholes us and puts us in a box in terms of like what the real opportunities are. And this is gonna hopefully help us, reach a place where we can incorporate more children and more resources into the operations and leagues that we run. I think I mentioned earlier, it's not just like with sports, that we're applying for significant grant opportunities as well to subsidize funding that is through our current city budget. But we are in process with a few of them. A little between 16 million and 20 million that we're looking to supplement, like I said, recreation budget, and that's currently in process. So we are exploring this right now in a way that we haven't done before. One of the things too is like we are a client-facing portion of the city, so we are considered a 501c3. We do have a support fund, and so we can take donations. And one of the things that's happened is throughout recreation's histories, there have been individual support accounts for each individual center, and then it's gone away. Then it's come back and it's gone away. So I'm bringing them back, and we're looking to make sure that if you know, a recreation center goes out and is doing the work and they can get individual support for their center, we can track that, we understand what they're bringing in, and then they can make decisions on how that money should be used in their individual centers. We're also going to create mechanisms for passive income through merchandise stores and collaborative partnerships that can create passive income, working with other organizations, things like donation centers at the, you know, at the recreation centers that have a split with them. So there's a lot of things that we're looking to do to increase the revenue that goes into the support fund, so we can, you know, actually have funding to do more than what's, you know, in our current budget. So there's a lot happening at the same time to actually be able to do that. So it's like 4 to 5 projects like in one to, you know, actually get the additional funding that we need.
So, that's really helpful. This is a helpful package. I'll look through it for sure. The other thing is, I know that we obviously don't charge for people to participate in our league, which I think is a great thing. That's a wonderful thing, but I would really encourage you to, at the end of the online registration that we're talking about, to find a way to put a donate button. So if people want to donate, like if a parent decides, you know, there's no registration fee, but they might want to make a contribution to the Giants team or whatever it is, and they're able to do that. I think that's, you know, that's another important piece of it. And I'm assuming that you're working on an online donation.
Yeah, so remember a meeting that we had where we talked about like the website and what the functionality of it? At the time, we hadn't had our new media content manager. So it was really consolidating it into
And I will
one
say, by
place.
the way, a very good new presence on social media for Providence Recreation.
Oh, yeah, we have an Instagram account, never had one before, so
Great
it's at Media Rec if you want to
Follow
follow
a
up.
lot of new postings.
Yeah,
The
so
mayor
there's-
posted something the other day too, which is great.
So there'll be a lot of information on there, but one of the great things about that position is that we have the ability to really create our own website now. So when we consolidated it, and we talked about in prior meetings, we're actually gonna build our own, so a donate button and things of that nature are gonna be 100% part of it. So that's actually pretty cool because we'll have the full scope and capability and expertise to be able to do it in-house. And that's where you're seeing like the Instagram page and some of the things that we're pushing out there. It's just my belief, like with more awareness, you know, nobody wants to support something that they don't know about, right? It's why we wear the brands that we wear, it's why we go to the places that we go, because we're aware, we want to support, we have a stake in it, and so that's what we're really trying to create, and just engage more people so that we can get the support that we're looking for. So it's, you know, really like a huge effort here and a huge push, to be able to do that. And I think that's where we're gonna get, you know, more presence and awareness of like, oh, well, I'm coming to the facility and I noticed that a lot of things are not up to par. Well, I want that attention, right? We want that attention. We want more people saying that so we can get the support that we need. And hopefully we'll have the mechanisms through our budget, through proper property maintenance and outside funding to be able to handle all of those things.
Yeah, that's great. My comment just in looking at this quickly though, what I'd say is that I know there's a lot of customs for $1 plus, but for the team sponsors and local businesses, I think probably the $2,000 mark might be a little bit high, and I think we should look at like the $250, $500 range, somewhere around there. I'm never afraid to ask people for more money, but I think that one sounds like if you're going to like a local neighborhood bakery or a pizza shop or something like that, we want to make it, I think, accessible.
This one is the main office level one.
Okay.
So like, this is from like my meetings with like community, like, or like, you know, companies, etc. We have one for the recreation center level as well.
Okay.
And that's where I mentioned, like, it doesn't even have to be money. It can be, you know, a volunteer opportunity or a partnership or something like that, as well as a financial.
Oh, no, I think it should be money. Just,
Yeah.
I'm just saying the $2,000.
I mean, this is me going after the, you know.
I'm sure there are business owners in your neighborhood. Yeah, in your neighborhood that would, you might not be able to give like 1,000, I would be like 250 pretty easily.
Yeah.
You know, so I would just encourage you to keep that in mind. As you think about these different tiers and levels and whatnot. You know, because honestly, I'm very happy to, and I know this is one of the things that we all kind of signed up for, is go out and help you to the extent that we can, and any partnerships that we can help you develop to raise money for the department, the most important department in the city. We are happy to do that, but this makes it easier for us to help with that too.
So put you down for an MVP.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Conversation offline. Any of the members have any for the record race on this particular piece of it?
So can you help me understand how the different rec centers are going to approach the community with these? Is there a
It's not
goal?
this one specifically.
Oh, with a similar,
Yeah, so
ask?
it's
Is
it's scaled down,
Okay.
expensive, so it actually essentially like guides the conversation.
Yeah.
So there's a blurb at the front that kind of explains why we're doing this, and then there's options that you have that, how to get involved with the rec. So it's really to spark the conversation,
Yeah.
and so it's generally just friendly, kind of informal, but with some data that we can collect as well. So they're not going out there and asking for $5,000 like
Yeah.
we are at the main office level. They're going out there and asking for what support can you give and how would you like to get involved? And it follows that level and it tells them, how you can do it. If it is a financial donation, we have instructions for how to do that. But if it's just a partnership or you're donating equipment, or supplies or something like that, those are all options as well.
Yeah.
So it's really to start sparking the conversation. If we have it at 3 different levels. So when I talk to, the city, we have major fundraisers, that's one way. If we are looking at corporations and other organizations that want to sponsor, that's another way. If there's individuals and community-based organizations that want to deal directly with the rec, that's another way. But at least we're asking in 3 different ways, because, it's like a law 10 thing, right? Like we're going to get 10% of what we ask for. So I'd rather, ask as many people to support, so that we can, essentially start getting some of the things that, we think that we need to be more successful.
I think it's great, honestly. What about tracking of funds? I know a lot of these, inner city locations where parents might come in and donate cash. How are you gonna track that as far as making sure those funds are appropriated and brought back to the city?
So we are not supposed to accept cash. If we do have an event where we accept cash, we actually get our treasury department involved. I've consulted them, I've consulted legal, I've consulted finance about how we're going to do this and how that process would work. We actually have the mechanisms for like the donation button, but in the center, we would not want to accept cash. We don't want any money exchanged. If that's going to happen, then we would actually set an event where that could happen and bring somebody from the city to collect cash for us.
I agree. I think it's a missed opportunity if you can't accept cash, especially at a
Yes,
basketball game,
yeah.
fundraiser or something like that. When people have $5 they can donate
Right.
without thinking about it, rather than saying, if I go on an app, they feel more dedicated to put a higher amount rather than give something like $5 or $10 at a location.
Right. I think, that is a barrier where I don't have a lot of control over that right now, just because of some of the rules for accepting cash donations. So the best way I could do that is, yes, we can. We have to plan it out correctly and say, we're going to have an event and we have someone there to actually collect the cash. And so we can do it on an event by event basis, but we shouldn't be, accepting donations just, in cash at any center specifically.
No, I listen early, so I wanna do my fundraising too.
Yeah, the other thing I'll just touch upon too is, I haven't seen this done yet, maybe it is, but I know like the little leagues do it, but I haven't seen it really from like the basketball leagues or anything where they do, like my son, for example, has had to do like double good popcorn fund, like things like that. It's not huge amounts of money, but obviously every little bit helps. I haven't seen anything in that in our basketball leagues or anything like that, but are there plans to kind of do more stuff like that? That's like a lot of these things are actually posted online now, or it's like a calendar raffle or things like that we can, be helpful on and help sell some of those, and are there different opportunities like that?
So no, and the reason is because we haven't even gone into that territory yet. And so I'm essentially crawling right now so we can walk and get into some of those opportunities. We had to make sure that 1, it was possible, 2, if it was allowed, and 3, if we had the mechanism to do something like that. So I am working on an opportunity for that right now, which is like a merchandise store, where it would essentially do the same thing, where we would get a revenue split, passive income to be able to, and the reason I'm doing that one first is because I believe in extending the brand. And the more people that are involved with your brand, it's a stake in your brand and it's like ownership, and you want to.
I think the Providence Recreation.
Correct, yeah, like I support this center or something like that. That's like our next step, which would open us up to opportunities like you suggested, because we would have the mechanism in place to be able to duplicate that process.
Good, we'll look forward to hearing more about it. Are there any questions from any of the board members or any ideas anybody has to share?
Thinking to, the Little League idea, one thing we do at the fields is we put up banners for the local organizations, that have made sponsorship, so it could be a good idea within the gyms, to have that visual presence. If they are gonna be giving, good chunks of money.
Yeah, there's like very specific rules to how we can actually do that. So that's something, like all of that is like literally on the table. Some of the things,
Explain those rules.
So, like, yeah, so like sometimes hanging things in the walls, you can't do that. You can't like, so someone, I'll give you a great example. You know how there's places where like the scoreboard has a business name on it? Well, that has to go out to RFP to get a donation to do that. So,
But haven't any. Okay, so let's talk about that for a minute though, too, because, oh, you mean the actual scoreboard itself?
yeah, so let's say a company's like, I want to purchase a scoreboard. And in return, I want my name. I can't just go, yes, let's do it right now. It actually has to go out to RFP.
RFP for the highest bidder to bid on sponsoring the scoreboard? Really? Huh.
So there's certain rules that we have to like abide by, I think, so that's why, you know, it's something. It's not like done yet, because you want to make sure you dot every I and cross every T. Like even with, like the recreation logos and the individual ones, I have to do like reverse image searches and make sure that those are our logos, there's no license infringement and stuff like that. Like, it's a process. Like, this is all stuff that like we're actively doing now, but needs to be done so that we can take those next steps. And so that means when we do that, then we can create stores like you mentioned and use the brand, et cetera.
I mean, the scoreboard example, to me, sort of sounds like a pretty silly obstacle to be able to do that stuff. It sounds like that may be something the council might want to reform in our RFP process, either with the appropriate safeguards, obviously, but
Yeah.
I mean, if you have somebody that wants to sponsor a scoreboard and they're paid for it and you slap their name on it. Sounds to me
I'd imagine that like those measures were put in place because something happened.
something there.
Yeah, something happened, right, where it was, you know, taken advantage of, so, I'm gonna play within those guidelines and make sure that like we're good, but we're almost there, like,
Okay,
hey, we're
Just for
pretty
the
good.
record, I did put in a policy, an ordinance change to go from 500 to 1,500 in an effort to change
Okay.
some of the way that we do that. Thinking of a situation like.
what does the scoreboard cost?
A lot,
Okay.
yeah, so it's in the thousands, so depending on which ones you get, so
That's what
2,500
there
to
for
7
$4,000.
grand.
1,500, okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that presentation. Any other questions or comments for Director Grace on fundraising? All right, Director, floor is also yours on the update on youth basketball and the soccer league. For disclosure, my son is in the basketball league and having a blast. So give us the update on how it's going.
All right, so the basketball league is something that Department of Recreation has done for you know, a long time, right? And it's actually our only official. And I think that's why the other, you know, league is on the agenda, because we want to expand. This was my first year seeing the beginning of the process. I came in at the tail end of the season last year. So I wanted to see operationally like how this, you know, is actually starting. So I got a great understanding of, what this process is. And we started the league last weekend. I went to a number of sites. I actually heard some positive comments, which were great. The crowds were respectful. You know, we had our, you know, coaches all wearing ID badges. We had folks, you know, handling the score, and not to say this wasn't done before, but it was actually like really good to see. I actually was rejuvenated. I told my staff when I had a meeting with them on Monday, like when I walked in, I felt like this was a wreck. You know what I mean? Like this is what it's supposed to be. So it was a great feeling. Wasn't without its hiccups though. We have a registration process that we'll probably have to revisit to register to play for the league. You know, we have to make sure that it's a Providence resident, so we need a resident check, we check report cards. We also make sure that the age requirements for, you know, so birth certificates, so it's a lot for, you know, a director and a staff to collect, to be able to make sure that kids that are interested in playing are playing. I would say, and I'll be completely transparent, the numbers aren't what they used to be. And I thought it was just us. And I treated it that way, so I really, you know, challenged the staff to get, you know, more players and more participation, which actually worked in you know, in the week, and so we were able to get it up, in terms of participation, but it seems like, at other organizations or comparable organizations, they're experiencing like the same problem. So one of the things I said to the staff is that we're not gonna, solve, 2023, 2024 issues with, 2016 solutions. So we're gonna revamp what we're doing and through the use of social media and our new engagement opportunities, see what we're gonna be able to do for next year, particularly with the girls program, right, with the girls basketball program. So
Can I actually ask you about the girls program now? So I know Zupolo and Baby Lopes has a girls.
Yeah.
Are they the only, are they the only two, or what is?
no,
the-
Davy Lopes, Jocelyn Rogers, Vincent Brown, West End, and Zupolo, all have an 11 to 12. Davy Lopes, Rogers, Vincent Brown, and Zupolo have the 13 to 14. And then Davy Lopes and Zupolo are the only ones with the 10 and under, so they kind of play, on other teams as well.
And it's and the 10U in particular is because it's not offered in other centers, is that right? Is that right? The girls basketball?
Definitively, for me to, like, for me to give you a definitive answer, I'd be guessing, right?
Yeah.
And so this is something that I actually need to explore, like, what is the interest in 10 or do we not do a good enough job of engaging, right? So that's a question. Is there a lack of interest? Are they doing other activities? Do we need to collaborate with other organizations? I don't know the answer to that yet, but that's something that we're looking at. I know next year, I have a ton of things that I know we're gonna do different. Starting earlier, and this may be something that people won't like, but I think that we actually have a great league when it's up and running. Expanding to other neighboring towns, right, that want to participate, and what that process would look like, changing the requirements to get into the league. I love that kids get good grades. I'm skeptical of like education sometimes and like what that process is. And what I mean by that is it's not necessarily your grades, it's your effort and your participation and your practice of education. So, maybe the requirement doesn't become report cards, it becomes the tutoring process and the support that you'll get in the recreation center to be eligible. So there's a lot of things that we can look at to see, what potential barriers that there are. So, all these things.
If a student is not doing well in school, are they not allowed to play?
Yes.
I actually have a real issue with that, I have to say, because I think there are students that excel very well in sports and that's their outlet in a lot of ways. But just may not do well in school. And trust me, I am a strong believer in making sure everybody does well in school, pays attention and shows up in attendance and whatnot. Maybe what I do think is a better indicator on that, maybe something like attendance, because that encourages students to go to school, but not necessarily based on a grade per se, but I do, I personally, I'm not sure everyone feels about this, but I do have some issues around, turning kids away in general.
Right.
For A, grades, B, not enough spots on a team and during tryouts and people don't make it to a rec league. You know how we feel about this, I think how I feel about it, that expanding opportunities for kids is more important than finding ways to turn them away.
Right.
And in a lot of cases, the whole relationship between a coach and a student or somebody who's playing on the team can help them do better in school.
Agreed.
I'm a strong believer in that, so I like that you're gonna be taking a look at that. I do think that that's something that needs to be reformed moving forward. I'll speak for myself, I'm not sure what you guys feel about it.
Absolutely.
If you want our support, my support, I'm happy to do it.
Great. I think, sports sometimes are a gateway out.
Correct.
And I think that if it's paired with education and they're counseled that it goes hand in hand, education and sports. But if you cuff the sports, there may not be education, there may not be a way out. I do agree that sometimes these sports overlap. We spoke earlier about that, where football interfered with the start of basketball. So we gotta make sure that there's a split there. Some kids want to play both and they can't. And they lose out opportunities on the basketball team when football season runs, coincides with it. I think we really need to look at the biggest point you made was refining that registration process.
Right. Yeah.
I was actually brought to light about a kid who was ready to play. The registration process wasn't complete, had his uniform on, ready to go, can't play. Some of the qualifiers, I think birth certificates, there's one incident where a kid's parents couldn't afford $30 to get a duplicate birth certificate to prove his age. You know, what do we do with kids like that?
Right.
So some of the things I think we really gotta bring to light and
Yeah.
figure out ways around.
Yeah, and I actually, and I'm glad that you guys are saying it, and you know, I actually wanna be clear. You know, this is a process that has existed, I could have changed it. And so that's on me for not doing it this year, I just didn't feel comfortable without seeing it first to make like major changes, but just even seeing it now, I think it's like, we're 100% gonna explore that, and what that registration process looks like. And also just to make it easier, right? Like, I feel like it shouldn't be that hard to participate, you know? And so the more difficult we make it, that's what decreases participation, right? And so we're gonna 100% take a look at that.
And my last thing is just scheduling of the basketball games. I was supposed to go to one on Tuesday, but I didn't find out till Monday night that the game was Tuesday. So a lot of these coaches are volunteers, so we gotta be cognizant of their time, that we make sure to give ample time for scheduling.
Yeah,
plan
I
for
will
these
double
games.
down. I have to say, we can do a better job of getting a schedule up front at the beginning of the season, so people can notify family members if they want to come watch. That for sure, at least in my personal experience, has been an issue. We don't know what the next week holds for us until very shortly before we're supposed to be there.
And I think that's actually amazing feedback, and unfortunately, one is actually a symptom of the other. Right, and so the difficulty to register and getting all the kids, and like, it's difficult to create a schedule when you don't know if a team exists. And so,
Yeah, I think it goes back to one of those things though too, where you have to have deadlines and.
Right.
So if you start the process earlier, you put a deadline in for a certain date, you know, practice is gonna start on X date. That stuff seemed like it was not in place for this season, where it was like, this is the date we're doing this is the date we're doing this. Here's when the schedule will be made, and here's when your first games will start, type of thing. It's very.
yeah, and I think our athletic coordinator, Shannon Perry, did a really good job. It's like her kind of facilitating this, and again, I think this is on me for being hands off to observe it. With my experience, I think I could have immediately stepped in and possibly made some changes. So like, that's on me, right? I think that creating a recreation-wide system, that's a lot better. Because if you're familiar with the city, and a lot of people are, you know that each recreation center has its own culture, its own, you know, way of being. And so while we want to preserve that, we got to get on the same system as well.
Absolutely.
And so giving folks the opportunity to do that with a lot of the new processes that I have, you know, this is kind of the last frontier, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
In terms of like understanding what the registration process could look like. Fortunately, you know, I anticipated this. I actually, I think we mentioned before, I went to the Watson Institute to get some help with our data collection and our membership and what that looks like. I'm actually bringing my 4 fellows from Brown around to some of the leagues, to some of the games on Saturday. So we can actually take a look at what that looks like and look at those processes. So I can actually get some help with, you know, making it more accessible and a better process. So we're actually in process for next year already.
I think the soccer league gives you good opportunities to be able to implement some of these new processes. Is that planned for the fall of 2024, or what's the timing?
We're actually trying to be pretty aggressive with that. So I'll run through like what we have so far. So what we're looking to do is create another official league, because basketball is our only one right now. And I believe, just based on community feedback, that soccer will be a great choice. Also, low barrier to entry, right? Like, it's a pretty fairly easy sport to set up. So we're looking at potentially a start date of April 15, 2024. So a spring league, the anticipated location being either Battistini, or to the point of the agenda earlier, maybe a field that PPSD has, or another partner that, you know, could create a location for how we want to do this. We may be partnering with an organization that does this well, since we have not done an official league. I don't know if we've ever done one, but like in a long time. And we're looking at a target demographic of actually all Rhode Island children, and not just Providence, because of the way that we're going to do this. The registration will be online, in person, and at our main office. And we're going to look at starting initially ages 5 to 7 and 8 to 10. And so the reason that we would want to do that, because it's our first time, typically you get a lot more parent involvement, but then if we start at that age, we can grow into something else if it's successful. We would do it in one location and have games that are scheduled throughout the day, potentially at 9 AM to 12 on Saturdays. The costs we're still estimating right now, but we're looking at an estimated cost to do something like that at around $22,000. And if we do open it up to non-residents, we would charge a fee for a non-resident to be able to participate in the league, but Providence residents would be free. We're looking for uniforms, referees, equipment, handling location costs, and when I originally did this plan, I had a marketing budget in there, but I can take that off now because I do have the marketing, so we're good. And so that's the plan right now. So we are actually in process of looking for sponsors, the locations. If we have to default to just Battistini, we have one. And
I mean, the other thing I was encouraged, Mount Pleasant High School really has, I mean, you can do 3 or 4 youth games at once over there.
yeah, they're actually on the list.
And it's visible. That's the other thing too, is that if you have it in a visible location, people in the neighborhood tend to see it and say, what is this league? What's going on? How do I get involved with it, type of thing?
Yeah. One of the different things in terms of registration that we would do is, I wouldn't do it by an individual center, it would be a pool. And we would create teams based on the age groups, and that's how we want to start this and kind of see a different process in terms of having individual centers recruit kids. Everyone would go to one location, we would have the pool set up, we'd identify teams, and we do that beforehand, and then that's how we would probably implement it.
Yeah, and I think, I'm sorry, so on the online, this goes back to online registration stuff, where I even think the basketball, this makes sense, that you funnel everybody into one website. It's easy for neighborhood associations, neighborhood groups to share it widely, rather than putting on the individual rec center. If you take that all in-house and they're able to share that one link across the city, then you have people sign up, and if they have a preference for a specific rec center or whatever it is, they have the ability to click on that rec center and say, this is my preference. Or if they don't at all, they might even know where the rec center is, and they could just sign up in general, assign them to certain areas where they did. But for the soccer league, it'll all be in one location, so it'll be a little bit different, but I do think a citywide registration makes a lot of sense.
And who are you planning to partner with? Do you already have a partner?
I don't have to, for a partner, it's an option. To partner with somebody. I don't know if we are 100% going to, but it is an option. And I wouldn't mind collaborating with somebody that does this, but I do want it to be a recreation. League.
I mean, April's coming up pretty quick, so. So anything we can do to be helpful on that, I think probably gonna take through a lot of volunteer coaches, I'm assuming. Maybe that process starts sooner rather than later. I mean, there's probably all the things you gotta start doing, but April is gonna help with that, and it's gonna be helpful with that. I think.
Or do you have that? I don't have that in my notes, but I believe it would be, I think we were targeting like a 10-game schedule.
The reason I asked is because you hit softball, baseball,
Yeah.
all the little leagues start right around May, April, May.
Yeah, so it could, and I think that's where, we targeted this date for that particular reason, because we looked at some other dates and where we could fit in this league in between some season starting, so, that date is there, I just forget. I know that's why we chose this date, but I gotta take a look at like what the length of the, actual league would be.
Yeah, I do know that, Pawtucket has a very strong soccer league. It might be worth setting up a conversation with them to understand the logistics behind it and their lessons learned. And they do it in the spring and the fall.
There are actually some pretty good organizations that do this. I've actually met with a lot of them and had some conversations just to kind of understand what that lift would be. And we do something in the summer as well. And so we partner for our summer camp in soccer. So we have some existing partners that we talk to. So I think that is a realistic possibility to bring them on.
And I do think, our institution's higher education, as our esteemed clerk has pointed out in the past, there are provisions in the pilot agreements and whatnot. TSAs that require.
They're growing.
Community involvement, and so, again, one of those areas I think where our higher education, our college institutions and higher institutions can be particularly helpful here too, so. Anybody else have any thoughts on soccer? And it's exciting.
It's very exciting.
It's really exciting, so hats off to you for, and your team for moving the ball forward on that. That's great. Okay, are there any other questions for Director Grace before we move to public comments? Any thoughts or suggestions for the public comment or anything? All right, so at this time, we will open it up to public comment for members of the public who want to come. I'd ask you to come up to the table over here and please provide your full name and I'd ask you, please keep your remarks to about no more than 3 minutes, please. You could come up to the table, please. Thank you. Sure. Sir, why don't you start?
All right. I have quite a few comments.
Your name is, sir?
My name is Jeremy Costa, for everyone. I'm a community organizer, and social activist. And, I've been pretty active in your community. Not so much a physical resident, but I work in this community. I pay taxes in this community. And, I just live right over the bridge, you know, and if this construction continues, I'll be purchasing a home very shortly, so just be ready for it. Most likely in the Mount Pleasant area too.
Welcome.
In mind.
That would be my neighborhood.
Yeah. So anyways, I just wanted to, I wanted to be more solution based. I didn't want to come with the energy that I was walking in. So I'm gonna change my thoughts. First of all, you guys were talking about one thing that is really near and dear to my heart. And that is community involvement. But I have not heard one community member mention that we have facilities that have been mismanaged, not cleaned properly, but we have not reached out to the Correctional and Juvenile Justice Department, the Recreation Department, and the Restorative Justice Department need to be hand in hand. We need to be out in our communities, hiring these youth to be working in our facilities, keeping our facilities clean. They don't need to be in Cranston, keeping those parks clean. They don't need to be in, I think in Warwick. They don't need to be downtown cleaning up Kennedy Plaza and around the facility. They need to be in the community that they came from, working in the communities, seeing the young youth, the formative years of the child, 5, 7, 10 years old. They need to see them again when they were at that age, developing. And they need to be making sure that they keep their community clean. So there has to be some type of mechanism that you guys are working out, not for trying to stem new dollars to try to sustain a community that is depleting on a regular basis. What we need to do is we need to reach out to those that have been unemployable, that have been unobtainable, and that have been disconnected from the city and civic engagements. There are plenty of people that would love to come back into the facilities that brought them up. When I was in Providence, owned a clothing store on Westminster Street, I had one in Pawtucket and I had one in Boston. But when I was here, I was not just a business owner. I was an activist that was trying to grow the youth and entrepreneurial skills. And one of the things that I did before I moved to Atlanta in 2005.
Mr. Council, I was gonna say quick here about a minute.
Yeah, minute and a half, might be 5 minutes. But one thing that I did was I did an event at the Southside Rec Center. I did a celebrity basketball game and I brought entertainers in. I brought artists in, local artists, local DJs. And I had competitions with those local DJs while they were playing basketball. And so what we need to do in our recreational centers is we need to allow the communities to come together. And we need the communities to grow the recreational centers. Not the people that are not from around here, that don't have any community ties, that are, going to school here for 6 months and then going home and they're coming back here. We need people that are from this community, that love this community, that love their people. We need them to be involved. I understand that we have the gentleman here from Brown University, we have all these Brown University analyzers, but they don't know the problems that these facilities are dealing with. We have asbestos going on. We might not be able to get these kids to clean up asbestos, but we definitely can teach them how to paint. We can teach them how to do some masonry work, because we got holes in the buildings. We can teach them how to fix the ceilings, the drop ceilings, or whatever's going on. We need to be associating ourselves with the workforce community and the sports community. We need to combine those two together. We need to be working with the work release program and making sure that if we're looking to find dollars so we can hire janitors to keep our facilities clean, we need to try to find ways that we can utilize the people that are already in the system, instead of trying to bring people from out of the system and spending up all of our resources on technologies and systems and processes. We need to focus on what we have. There's a few other things that I wanted to mention that kind of touch me, and it's really, really tough. We're talking about soccer and all these things, and we have a flooding issue. We have rivers and streams and things that are forcing the children not to be able to play in these fields. So we want to get these kids to be in this bowl of backfill and asbestos and brownfields, but we haven't even fixed our infrastructure. So what we need to do is we need to have a young engineer go to these facilities and do a maintenance check to see exactly what is necessary and needed to be changed before we start bringing in technology and the technicians and changing up all of the technical things that you guys are looking to do to streamline the services. We need to make sure that there are services that are going to be there. Our buildings are breaking down. I can show you pictures that get sent to me daily. Like, I can't believe it. I know Davey, I know you're gonna spend some money on Dave's building, because that place has got people in the community that are getting cancer because of the asbestos in the building. I know that John Hope hasn't had a director, and I know that it's, it needs repairs. I know that there's a lot of things going on that I'm not associated with. I'm just getting, the phone calls and the emails and the text messages. And so what I would like to see from this working group, because it seems like there's some communication going on. It seems like, you guys are using Bright. So, continue to use those programs and softwares, but let's focus on how to integrate the community that's here and allow them the opportunities. We don't need to open up. I really pray that you guys have the success that you guys think you're gonna have in the soccer league when there's 16 other organizations trying to start a soccer league to try to create sustainability for this professional team that we're gonna have. We have,
Mr. Cosner, I'm gonna ask you to wrap it up, though. You asked for 5 minutes, and
I wanna know how many grants, I wanna know how many.
Wait, I gave you the 5 minutes that you asked
All right,
for. I'm gonna give you another 30 seconds to wrap up.
All right, no, I'll wrap it up. I want to know how many grant writers we have and how many people are focused on truly bringing in money. I brought a proposition to the table for the mayor that said there was money allocated, that was allocated from the federal government. There was sustainability goals that the Biden has, that he has allocated funds for, millions of dollars. I haven't got a phone call back from Stephen Grace or from anybody else. They just came to pick information to see what they could take and then try to use it as if they was their own. That's fine. I'm giving you this information because I want to see this community develop. My daughter's born in this state. I have to make sure that her name is associated with brilliance, with beautification. I don't want to see this city just dissolve. I want to see it
Thank you
grow.
for your comment.
So
We really
let's
appreciate it.
make sure
Give
that
me
we
10
have.
seconds to wrap it up.
Yeah, 5 seconds. Let's make sure that the next time that we actually have a list of what exactly needs to be done on each facility. Let's get the cost of all of these things that are being brought to the table, and let's do a cost versus expense and budget. Let's really get down to the numbers. I don't think that trying to raise funds from local people is important. You know, I think that developing our local people is more important.
Agreed. I agree with that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Sir, thank you for coming tonight. Could you just state your name for the record, and if you could try to keep your comments between 3 to 5 minutes, we'd appreciate that. Thank you.
My name is John Prince, and I'm here tonight because I want to ask, what is the recreational budget for all the recreation in the community? What is your budget as a whole?
So the public comment period it's not really a chance to have a back and forth on answering questions. However, I think, however, on this, if you let me finish what I'm saying, on this particular question, Director Grace, could you just share what the total budget is of the city?
Just over 5 million?
I have it at 4.5, but they don't figure that.
Okay, and I'm gonna deal with what she said earlier. That you guys is not even thinking, you're thinking about soccer and basketball, but you're not thinking about the health of these kids in this community. In my community, in South Providence and in West End. You don't know how many people died in my community from cancer in these recreation centers. And you guys have audacity to sit here and talk about soccer field? Are you kidding me? There's more important elements that needs to be addressed than soccer. And I got some pictures over here, but some of the recreation centers that I had diversity raining, still, David Oaks is still raining, like it's nobody's business. My problem is, Mr. Stephen, that's your name?
Yes.
You mentioned earlier that if people have to be a Providence residents, kids gotta be a Providence residents to get into some of these entities. But you came here from Boston, and you ain't a Providence resident, you're in bed here, and you brought 6 folks here with you that was you under the first source ordinance when you got here. Did you hire over that? The first source ordinance. There's an ordinance right here in this building. No. Okay. My last question. Why you guys are turning the schools into recreation centers? You guys is kind of overlapping shit. You want to make the recreations a school or a school or recreation center? I'm kind of dumbfounded on that one. And my main thing is the health of these kids in this neighborhood. They definitely 2 kids in the West End died 3 or 4 years ago. In the swimming pool. Lifeguards fell asleep, wasn't on guard. One kid ate some paint in the building, got sick, got cancer. And you guys sitting here talking about soccer field? Yes, so I just want to say in closing, you guys gotta have a youth at this board. I don't see no young person here either. None. You guys have somebody young that's in the community. There's a lot of out there in South Providence in the West End that can be on this committee, that can show, that has some young ideas instead of being shut up. That's all I have to say.
An active e-gaming is very important.
Thank you, Mr. Prince, for sharing your ideas. We appreciate that.
Mr. Simon, active e-gaming also.
Mr. Costa, you've had your chance to speak. We're gonna move on to everything else, and then we're gonna wrap up after the public comments. So you've had your chance already.
But she said a great thing, but the slow response for these recreation centers is just terrible. And they need to be addressed soon as they can, because right now, Davy Lopes and a couple other recreation centers, the West End, they didn't die of repairs. Thank you.
Mr. Prince, thank you very much for coming to share your thoughts. You're welcome. Sir?
Okay.
Please, thanks for coming. If you could state your
Thank you so
name and
much.
share your ideas. Yeah, can you keep your remarks about 3 minutes?
No problem. Yes, my name is Francisco Martinez. I've been living in this city for more than 30 years. We've been doing soccer for more than 25 years as a Guatemala Soccer League here in Providence. And then right now, I know everyone has their own ideas and different, comments to say, but the reason that I'm here and the reason that I'm doing soccer especially is because I play developed when I was a teenager, and then and doing soccer is something that to keep the community together. Not only the adults, I do everything in Providence. I do senior soccer, I do over 40 soccer, I do women's soccer league, I do open league soccer for the community, and also right now we have Paisa, Providence Youth Soccer Academy, that I do kind of for free for the kids of Providence. I have 4 coaches that they are helping me, donating their own times without cost, without money. And then I myself also, because we are supporting this with the Guatemala Soccer League adults. So we've been renting different recreation center in Providence for long times. And when he was speaking there saying that soccer destroyed the facilities, it broke my heart because it's not true. Mr. Rashid know me. We've been renting John Hall for so many years, and we have never ever broken not even one light, not even one window, because the ball that we use is non-bouncing balls. So those balls doesn't bounce like the regular ball from outdoor. So it broke my heart because right now I'm trying to get a gym for my kids. It's very possible. Every time that we touch the doors, they saw me that is soccer, they say, no, you destroy the gym. And I say, give me the opportunity to show you that is not true. So also we rent John Rollins Recreation Center right now for the soccer league. I ran a clinic, a free clinic soccer with Miss Nasha for 7 weeks at John Rollins, and we didn't destroy anything. So the reason that I did that was because with Nasha, we was trying to do something different instead of basketball. So I told Nasha, we should do something for the community also. And, we run this program completely free. We didn't charge nothing. Like I say, I had the coaches to helping me and myself. And, it was so nice to see more than 40 kids coming to practice sports. And now some of them, they don't want to do basketball no more. They want to keep doing soccer, and that way we coach them. So, and I try to continue with the legacy, but I cannot have any place to go with this kid. And like I say, it broke my heart because, we have the time, we have.
Mr. Martinez, you have about a minute.
Okay,
Take another minute.
Yeah, we have everything that we want to continue with this, and I don't know what to do. I don't know if someone can help with this, to do this for the kids, not for the adults, just for the kids, and it's very possible. So, and I want to offer my time with you. If you need something from me as a community, I will be able to help you on anything that you need, if you think that I can help in something. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. I appreciate you coming tonight and sharing your thoughts and ideas. Are there any other community members here who would like to share thoughts, ideas?
E-gaming activity is very important. E-gaming activities. There are plenty of sports that e-gaming will bring to plenty of people if you allow e-gaming in your recreational facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Combs.
Bring.
All right, so we're gonna wrap it up. Is there I'm sorry, before we do leave, we don't have all of our members here. For the next meeting, we're gonna look to February on a Monday. I'll work with our wonderful city clerk to get that scheduled. We are starting to go into budget season. So the mayor's gonna start to put his budget together, so I think it's important when we start to have a conversation about budget, what our recommendations might be in the next meeting. So that will be one item, and then I'll shop around some other ideas with everybody in a couple of weeks. Does anybody have anything to add before we adjourn? All right, thank you guys always for your time. Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? All in favor? All opposed? Yeah, thank you guys.
Hi, New Year.